The meeting of the Cabinet for today. Obviously, it's just one agenda item. Are there any apologies for absence? No. Any declarations of interest?
Councillor Barry, you did declare one at the council.
Yes, because I work for Derbyshire County Council, so just.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. And then item 3 is the local government reorganisation submission. We haven't got a paper on that, but we did have the council meeting on Monday. We've also had the draft of the minutes, which I think pulls out the debate. I thought it was a really good meeting, a lot of good points being made, and a serious debate around the issues. And I think it's only right that we sort of revisit some of those. We've got an opportunity now to sort of do it. I think for me, the main thing, a couple of things that were pulled out, but one of them were the reduction in democratic representation. And obviously, with a bigger unitary, you'll end up with less councillors. But for me, like was said in the debate, you could spin that the other way and say for the main services, if you like, what the county council provides at the moment, you're actually getting better representation, because at the moment the county council has got represents 10,000 people. What we're proposing is for that to be each council to have 5,000. So there is you can spin that both ways, and hopefully, I think one of the things in it is that you'll have dedicated councillors that can spend more time and effort doing what they actually pay to do, and be councillors on a more professional basis. The other one that were brought out was council tax harmonisation, and again there were several questions around that. So just an opportunity, Jane, if you want to sort of try and address some of the issues that were flagged up in that meeting.
Yeah, certainly will, Chair. So council tax harmonisation, I won't reiterate everything that I said on Monday, but what I'll try and do is just try and provide a little bit more clarity. So it's the process that's undertaken when a new unitary is created. So if you think at the moment, we've got 9 billing authorities, all of the districts and boroughs in Derby City, and each year they set their council tax based on a tax base and based on a percentage increase. All the districts and boroughs can increase by 3%, and the county and social care providers can increase by an additional 2%. So you're creating 2 unitary authorities, you clearly need to do some alignment at some point, and it's about aligning those different council tax rates across the previously separate councils to ensure that the residents in the new unitary area are contributing fairly and consistently for those local services over a period of time. So the process has to be completed within 7 years, and you have lots of options within that 7 years. So you have options over the timing of harmonisation, and you also have options over the rate that you do it, so how fast you do it and how quickly you go, if that makes sense. So you would the new council will have 2 decisions to make, and I said this several times on Monday, and I can't reiterate it strongly enough. This is a decision for that new council to take as part of its first budget setting and council tax setting process. So not only will they be setting their council tax rates, which is something that you do every year, you'll also be setting your process for harmonisation. Now, the modelling and the paper was written on the basis that we've got a very firm eye on meeting criteria 2, and to meet criteria 2, we needed to demonstrate a model that was financially sustainable. So to do so, we took the benefit in the model of what council tax harmonisation would do. So I'm an accountant, I'm going to take that benefit. I'm going to say that income generation is the most important thing to the organisation. We need to generate that money. But of course, the political decision might be completely opposite to that, and you may decide that you want to take different decisions in terms of your new organisation and your new budget and the services that you deliver, and harmonise at a slower rate or at a lower rate. So you may decide to harmonise not going to the highest, you may decide to go to the weighted average, you may decide to go to the lowest. that will all be within the new council's gift and will be a political decision. As I say, the tension will come because you've got to make that decision about how you're going to fund your local services. So, like I say to you every year, and like I said on Monday, I said to you every year, you really need to put your council tax up to maintain local services. It'll be a similar sort of decision-making process. In terms of what that would look like for each of the councils, I didn't go into the detail on Monday, and I'd be reluctant to go into the detail at this stage because there are so many variants. There's a lot of variants, and it does depend on how fast you want to go and how hard you want to go, basically reflecting. So I wouldn't want to go into that in too much detail, but if you did go down a weighted average, which is the one in the middle, so some would go up, some would go down, and you go smack bang in the middle, North East is right on the line of the weighted average. So it would have very little impact for North East Derbyshire residents on the weighted average model. And as I say, I have got all of that modelling, and I'm happy to share whatever details is needed to be shared. But I really do think it's a decision for the new council, so it's really just to have a watching brief on.
Thanks, Jane. And like you say, it is a model, and we've got to do something to put into the submission, and then obviously the whatever your group were called.
Yeah, the Section 151 officers. Yeah.
Came up with all that's all the 157 officers or whatever they are throughout all the districts and the city arrived at that. Are there any questions on that aspect for Jane? Thanks for that, Jane, because it was something that people kept coming back to on Monday. And Joe, did you want to
just a quick the harmonisation of the rate thingy as was, whatever we're calling it these days? How much would that be affected by the harmonisation of services across the different boroughs? Really
good question, because one of the things that I was, in answer to Councillor Dale's question on Monday, and one of the points that I was trying to make is that if you can do large-scale transformation as well as creating the new organisation, and you can do large-scale transformation, you can do your savings quicker than we've modelled, which is over 6 years, the decision over what you do with council tax would be very different to if you're, use my HS2 analogy, which was probably not the best analogy because this would be much more successful, hopefully, as a delivery project. But it would be, you maybe go quicker. So if you go quicker and you make more savings, there'll be less of a pressure on your council tax harmonisation and council tax increase decision making, but you can't take them in isolation. So if you're making higher levels of savings more quickly, there'll be less pressure. If you're making those savings more slowly, there'll be more pressure to make this decision. You cannot separate the two. The financial sustainability is intrinsically tied up with the council tax setting, just like it is now. It's no different to how it is now.
Thanks, Jane. And did you want?
I was only going to say, as far as you could give us information, that logically at the moment we are in the middle. So if there are big differences, we should be affected least of all in the big differences.
Well, kind of. If we went down the weighted average, if the new council took the decision that it wanted to apply harmonisation at the weighted average, then North East residents would be affected the least because we're closest to the weighted average. If the new council decided to go to the highest, Derbyshire Dales would be the least affected because theirs is the highest as we sit here today. So it very much depends on what decision you take.
That's it. Thank you. I think there's been some development since we had our meeting on Monday. I don't know how much you've got, Lee, to sort of update us now. We're on Thursday.
Yeah.
Because I think all the councils are going through a similar process.
Yeah, exactly right, Chair. So during this couple of weeks period, different councils are having different meetings, as well as being set up differently in some respects.
South Derbyshire District Council, for instance,
operate a committee system. They approved a base B as a base proposal with no modification earlier this week. So they've reached approval on that. Bolsover District Council had a council meeting followed immediately by their executive, which is like our cabinet. They voted for an A1 modification of A as the base proposal. Just last night, I think it was, High Peak Borough Council, they voted for B1 modification of B as a base proposal, and that's got executive approval now, so that's a decision made. Chesterfield, sort of where we are, they've been to council this week. They've got an executive or cabinet meeting on the 11th next week, but from council, they've got a recommendation to cabinet for option B1, which is a modification off of the base proposal B. Clearly, we've got that decision to make today, or our cabinet have got that decision to make today. And then we've got Amber Valley, Erewash, Derbyshire Dales and the city who, from today over the next few days, will be going through that same process. The other interesting development is the county council papers that have been published, which suggests that I think it's the 13th of November Day Council meeting. There's a recommendation in that paper for a whole, which includes the city within that unitary, which is different to the previous large county unitary model, which still had two unitary models that were proposed at the interim stage. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens there, but that's certainly in the papers. I think that's as much as I know in terms of the position of everyone else, Chair.
Thank you. I mean, I had a quick look at the county option last night. It was published, don't know, late on yesterday. And to say that'll be a big unitary council is built, as far as I know, and I don't know if anybody can, but when we were looking at the start of the process and there were 15 options on the table, one of the options was this, to look at a full county option, and for various reasons, I don't know, you know, that it were too big for a start. You'd lose a lot more of your, like you say, the representations. You can't have more than 100 councillors, so you'd have to have more. That we discounted it very early doors, I think, through KPMG and whoever were looking at it. So I'm very surprised that that's reappeared at this juncture. So I don't know if anybody wants to comment on that, because basically it's hot off the press. Probably it's only just on the table. We've not had a chance to study it. And I think we're here today to make a decision for us at North East Derbyshire. And we can't, to be honest, I can't explain why others have arrived at the conclusions they've arrived at. We've done it from good faith. We're representing the people of North East Derbyshire. We've all looked at it, senior officers. Well, I think we all have, all the cabinet, me and Kevin, and I think you were originally, Steve, were looking into all this, and we're where we are. And I don't know, any comments before I actually get round to moving our option? Lee and Kevin?
I don't mind. Well, all I was going to say, Chair, is sort of backing up what you just said. I think we spent quite a lot of time on Monday at council explaining the benefits of the two unitary model that we'd gone for. Some of that underpinning sort of evidence or the foundations were around whether or not our proposal was meeting the criteria that had been set by government. And in the early days, you're quite right, the whole county unitary was amongst one of 15 options that we were looking at in the first early stages. And we quickly moved to rule that out because it wasn't as meeting the criteria as well as others, particularly around that sensible scale and sensible geography and the rest of it. And I think throughout our presentation, we referred on a number of occasions, don't ask me to cite which ones, but at least half a dozen reasons why a two unitary model is better than a single. And I think within the pack, that certainly spells that out. So I'm just reiterating what you said, I guess.
Yeah, thanks, Lee. Kevin?
No, in terms of what you said, Leader, I thought Monday was a good debate, probably one of the best debates we've had in council in a long time. And I think what it showed is that members were interested. They'd taken the time to read the paper, to try and understand it and ask questions where they didn't understand it, to clarify it so they could take an informed decision. And I think that's really what it's all about at the end of the day, because we're all trying to do our best for our own constituents, but also for North East Derbyshire. What struck me on Monday was there was nothing unexpected in what was said. We'd thought about it, we'd discussed it, we'd debated it, it looked at the merits of a lot of those proposals before we got to Monday and reached the conclusions we reached. But equally, those judgments of some of the people who disagreed with us, I think, are perfectly valid.
Yes, yes.
There is no silver bullet in any of this. It's about understanding the facts, understanding the consequences, and then reaching your own conclusion. In terms of the council tax harmonisation, again, as was made clear on Monday, that is but one factor to be taken into account. And the thing about council tax harmonisation is there are so many unknowns and moving variables that you could actually have any statistic you want out that to meet the argument at the moment that you want to make. And that doesn't make your argument is invalid. It just means I can make a different argument and you can make a completely different argument to that because the facts are all different and a lot of them just aren't known. And as we said, it's not the only factor. It is a factor, but it's not the only factor. And we went through a lot of those factors and the vision that the managing director outlined, and I think that's ultimately behind it as well. I also take into account what other councils have done, and that's quite refreshing, really, because we have done different things, and again, that is probably the right thing to do because we are looking at it from the perspective of our councils, and we do have different views. And our interests may be slightly different, and that does produce different outcomes as well in terms of which way we go. But it also reinforces what we said on Monday, is that if we tried to opt out of this process on Monday, as it was suggested, it would still be a live issue because other councils would still put forward an option to the Secretary of State, and then he could make a decision without our input. So I feel
good point.
I feel slightly vindicated with that, and I think it just means we did do the right thing. I've reflected on what people said on Monday. I've read the paper that came out this morning with a summary of it, and I think it's a fair summary, as best I can recollect, and it hasn't changed my mind. I still think this council needs to be putting forward its opinion. That's what we're elected to do at the end of the day, not to opt out of it. And I still think option A with the modification of A1 is the right thing to do, Chair. So obviously I should up now and let other people speak, but that's where I'm at the moment.
Kevin? Yes, Steve?
Thank you, Chair. I mean, yes, some of mine is to agree and reinforce with what Kevin was saying. We did have, it was an excellent debate on Monday. And again, I want to reiterate thanks to Lee, Matt, Jane, yourself, Kevin, and all the team that's been involved in doing that. A tremendous piece of work, contains a lot of information, and it's all been done. A lot of it's been done to cover the whole 2 unitaries, but we must keep that North East Derbyshire focus on it as well. We're that council, that's who we represent. And it was suggested that we didn't make a response at all, but we write to the government and suggest something else. Well, this process isn't about protesting that and asking for change. It's not that kind of process that we're in. I don't think that's the right thing to do, because if we do that, we don't engage with it. I think, as Kevin's alluded to, we don't have a say on behalf of our residents, and that's where our primary responsibility lies. And then looking at the knock-on for the wider unitary. And, you know, money's right, and council tax, and we've got to look at, if we're dividing anything up, we've got to look at what brings the best economic value and equal distribution for residents of North East Derbyshire. And I said on Monday, I don't think it's responsible if we don't make a response. And no matter what Chesterfield or anybody else does, I hope that they're sat round a table making their decisions based on what they think is in the best interests of their residents, whether it's IP, Chester. If they're doing it for any other reason, it's probably a bit nefarious. That's got to be our primary concern. That's where I'm sat here, and what I've seen in the documents, the advice, what I've listened to, for me, the best option is to go for option A with the A1 modification. That's what I'll be supporting, Chair, for those reasons.
Yeah, thanks. Anybody else? I think just to bring it back is that we did all that on Monday, and we said at that point that we'd take notice of what was said and take that into consideration. I think we have done that, and like Kevin said, there were some good points made at that meeting, but none that we'd already not considered. There were nothing came that was a surprise, and we've got to balance all that off against all the other evidence that's in there. And it's not just, like I think Kevin said that on Monday, it's not just about number crunching, it's about knowing the area and the lived experience of people, and we've put that into the mix as well. I think that's us as councillors, that's what we have to do. But I think we sort of moved it on Monday, but we now need to formally move as a cabinet that we support the local government reorganisation in Derbyshire, the case for change, and we approve that and submit it to government on or before the 28th of November 2025, with option A as the base case, supported by the modification A1 as the preferred boundary option. And I'm confident that looked at everything in the round and listened to the debate, that is the best option for North East Derbyshire to support. So I'm officially moving that at this meeting.
I think that, Chair.
Thank you. Is there any comments before we vote? Are we happy to move? And we've moved and seconded that. We all in favour of that? Thank you. I think that's it for the agenda. There are any urgent items? No? Well, thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.